Well, hey everybody, Dirk Hanna here. I'm the head of the Empowering Ministries. I'm here to talk to you. If you're watching this video, you've been recruited to be on our new ministry, which is we're calling Care Ministry. And this is a ministry that is, at this point, has been designed to be a temporary ministry as we work our way through the COVID virus. And let me give you a little bit of background on it, just so you have some kind of context as to what we're doing here. So, again, I'm over the Empowering Ministries. And so the way I kind of view things is I look at what are the needs of the people of our church, what are their emotional, spiritual, healing, recovery needs. And as I look across the board at that, I look at, okay, do we have a ministry that's addressing each one of those needs? And if we don't, then I need to come up with a ministry that is going to address those needs. So, as I'm sure you know, with the COVID virus, it has created a whole new world for us, basically, of needs that we need to take care of. And that's both physical and spiritual. I take care of the spiritual side. And so here's what I've found in terms of the kind of the progression of how we're handling this. The first part of the virus, this is about within the first month. We were all kind of scrambling around, trying to reorient our lives and our work around this virus. Do I have enough toilet paper? How do I make sure my kids are not being exposed to it? How do I make sure I'm not being exposed to it? Wearing a mask, where do I go? What do I not do? How do I do my work online? The whole thing, right? And that first month, we kind of keep ourselves busy with all that. And then once the first month is over, and we've kind of got our world set up and reoriented, that's when we start to realize the different stresses that are being put upon us, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I saw it all. It's very consistent, actually. It's all kind of in 1 week. Everybody kind of hit the wall at the same time. It was about a month into it. And what I realized was that what we're going through with this virus is very similar to someone going through a traumatic event in your personal life. Say it's a divorce or death in the family or something like that. At the beginning, there's a lot of things you have to do, like logistics and things you have to handle and things you have to take care of. And you're able to keep yourself really busy. And you're able to put off all those emotions and all the anxiety and everything else that's going along with it. And, you keep yourself rolling. Then all of a sudden, once that's done, the bottom kind of drops out. And you no longer have anything to keep you busy as busy as you were. And now all of a sudden you're left to deal with your emotions. Here's another thing. Another unique element of this is that we get to spend a lot of time alone and isolated. And that is it is not typically a good thing. In small spurts, fine, But, when we're left alone to our own thoughts, I won't speak for everyone, but for me, it's usually not a great thing over the course of time. You know what I'm saying? Especially when we're in an environment where there's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of anxiety, just to begin with. Even under normal circumstances, being alone a lot is not a healthy thing, I don't think. And God showed us we need to be with community. And, everything we've done online is fantastic, but it's still probably merely a substitute for the real thing. So all that to say that now people are really starting to get this growing anxiety, and it's as we look at now, this is, I think a friend of mine described it well, as at the beginning, it's kind of like, it's almost like it's a snow day. Like, hey, we're having, oh boy, we get to stay home and do all these new things, work on my house, whatever. And then once the kind of novelty of that works off, then all of a sudden, again, we're left to where we're at. So I have we have ministries that deal with long-term stuff. Usually people like dealing with death in the family, divorce, things like that. So we're talking 6 months, a year, a couple years. The anxiety that we're getting in this is not, to my mind, something that's that long of a care situation. So I feel like what I prayed about is that we need something that's a little more short term, okay? Something that kind of fits in between, just please pray for me and I need somebody for the next couple years. Something in between. That's where the care ministry comes in. This is the vision I have for it, the picture of what it looks like, what it is and what it is not. People that start to feel a bit of anxiety and they need someone to talk to. Okay, that's where I'm calling these, care ministers, where care minister will come in. And it looks something like this. Maybe they just need one phone call to help them process what's going on. Maybe they need a couple phone calls over the course of a week or two, maybe a month. A short-term situation. And let me tell you about the dynamics of it. Some ministries are very proactive, like Oaks. We go in there, we get their life story, we ask questions, we have prayer through stuff. It's a very intentional process. On the other end, a different kind of ministry that's just as powerful is what we're going to be doing here in care ministry. And that is this. You're going to listen. You're going to allow people to process, and then you're going to pray with them. That's it. You are not going to give advice, nor do you need to be a cheerleader, like everything's going to be great, and you don't need to be somebody's best friend. You just have to be there for them to allow them to process and to allow them to talk. The biggest thing you're going to do is listen. And when you hear that, you may think, well, wait a second, just listening, how much good is that going to do? A lot. I want you to think back to a time when you just needed to talk to somebody and you found somebody who was just a great listener, who was able to allow you to process whatever you were processing. And that at the end, you felt unburdened and you felt lighter in spirit. I have a dear friend of mine who plays that role in my life. His name's Ryan. He's known me for years. He's known me way before I was a pastor. And when I get to a point in my life or whatever where I'm kind of getting into a funk, or my thought life is not healthy, I'm getting a lot of anxiety or whatever, it's time to go see Ryan. My wife even says, it's time to go see Ryan. And what we do is I sit down with him, and we obviously talk about other stuff, but I just unload, and I do it in an unfiltered kind of way, I don't sit there and think about how I want to make this sound nice and neat and whatever. I just kind of unload it, right? Whatever is causing me anxiety or stress. And the cool thing about Ryan, he doesn't judge. He doesn't give me advice. He just listens, and allows me to process all this information. And that takes, however long it takes. Usually it's about an hour or so. And at the end of it, I'm like a new man. It was like, okay, there we go. And he'll pray for me. And it's miraculous, At the end, I just have to, there's a ministry can also be just getting it out, right? So again, the role you're going to play is you're going to listen, allow them to process, and just pray with them, and don't underestimate how valuable that is. So that's why this is a pretty simple training, because it's a pretty simple ministry. And this is the great thing. This is the great thing about this ministry. It is going to be ultimately a relatively small time commitment per week, really. But you're going to have huge impact on your church, and your community by doing this. So it's exciting to me. Okay. Let me go over just kind of some of the logistics of what this looks like. So you'll watch this video, and then once you're done, I'll follow up with you, see if you have any questions, you need any kind of fine-tuning on the information. And once that's done, you're trained and you're ready to go. Okay? When I have people that call in, I'm going to call them care receivers, that I feel would be good for this ministry. I'm going to meet with them, chat with them, kind of get some of their information. And then if I decide that this is the ministry that they need to be plugged into, I'll kind of pray over everybody that's available on our team, and I'll make an assignment, and I'll give you their information. You then contact them, and you kind of go from there, just I'm going to get into more specifics about how those meetings go later on in the training. But you'll contact them, and you guys will establish what you guys want to do, if it's one phone call a week or whatever, and you go from there. Okay, it's really I know it sounds like I'm making it oversimplified, but it's really not. That's really the extent of it. So there's the long way around giving you context for what the ministry is intending to do and what your job is going to be. Okay, so now I want to kind of segue into the actual training and what we're going to be doing. First thing I want to talk about is listening. Listening is going to be the most important thing you do in this ministry. You're listening to God and saying, what do I need? How do I need to pray for this person? What do you want me to tell them from you? And you're listening to the person as well, and in terms of what they're processing. And so you're sitting there, and it's critical to listen to both. Now, obviously, we can't meet in person at this point, so your interaction is either going to be over the phone or over something online, right? I recommend that if you can meet online, that you do, and here's why. So much communication is nonverbal. So if you can see their face, even if it's on a computer screen, I think it's going to tell you a lot in terms of where they're at. It's important for them to see your face in terms of just react. You can communicate so much with facial expressions of just like, I'm here for you, I understand, I'm with you, So if you can, please do it that way. If it's over the phone, again, you're just listening to tone of voice, everything else, and it's a slightly different approach, but it's no less powerful. Again, so in this, as they communicate, this is kind of one of the basic things, they're going to be processing a lot. So there might be times when there's just a lot of silence, and you have to not fear the silence, okay? If you go through, if they're just taking a pause, maybe the Holy Spirit's kind of, communicating with them. Don't be afraid of that. Let that play out, okay? You don't need to fill up every minute with space, okay? Or, every space with silence, excuse me. Just allow them to kind of be at they dictate the kind of the rhythm of how things go, okay? And the other part is don't think that you have to have some kind of fancy, a lot of questions. You don't need to ask a lot of questions typically. Sometimes you might throw in some open-ended questions. How did that make you feel? Where are you at right now? But this is going to be, I'm going to give you the way you can start every meeting. Okay. I've done this for the entire time I've been in ministry, and it's a simple question, but it will get you started and get things rolling. So you get them on the phone, maybe exchange some pleasantries. How you doing? Everything going great? You pray in, and this is what you say. What's going on? And then let them go. And you'll be occupied for the next hour in terms of listening to them, because if they've signed up for this, they have a lot to talk about, So sit down, what's going on, and then let it go from there. Very, very important. We are not giving advice. We're not trying to get to the source of all their issues, and it's your mother or your whatever, nothing like that. We're just listening. So not only do I not want you to give, you are not allowed to give advice. Let's put it that way. Let me put it as succinctly as possible. You're there to listen. So no advice giving, no commentary on, that person should blah, 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 whatever, anything like that. And also, I can say no, and it may sound counterintuitive to some of you, but no, like cheerleader, everything's going to be great, you're going to be awesome. And that's not what we're here for. Again, you're listening, you're allowing them to process, okay? Things like that. So that's kind of the general general feel for listening. And so if you've been recruited for this, I'm confident you're a good listener. So that'll probably come fairly natural to you. When you speak with, again, you don't have to set up any expectations on your first meeting of, okay, we're going to talk on these days and this is going to be this is our schedule for the next 3 weeks. I wouldn't suggest you do that. Because this is a more short-term ministry, I recommend that you play it by ear. In other words, you have your first meeting, and sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, one good hour-long conversation, just somebody processing, you know what, I'm good. Thanks for calling. Other folks are going to take maybe a couple meetings. And in that, I wouldn't set up a whole schedule or anything like that because you don't really know where they're going to be emotionally. They may need more or less. So I would just say, after your first meeting, just decide the next time you're going to talk. I mean, I'll follow up with you. I'll circle back around in a week. Is that okay? Or let me call you in a couple of days or whatever. But don't try to have a long schedule involved because it's really, it needs to be a little more organic, where they're going to call you when they need to call you or meet with you. Yeah. So, and in this, I'm going to assume, again, because you've been recruited, I'm not going to go over get involved with, phone etiquette, where it's like, I'm just going to assume, don't call late at night. Don't call early in the morning. Every time you call them or text with them, just go, hey, is this a good time? Can we talk right now? Is this a good time? Don't just, make sure that they're comfortable. Make sure you're in a place of where you're not going to be distracted. I know it's very difficult right now because we're all at home, and if you got kids, well, there's just really no safe place. But make sure that you're focused. I wouldn't call while when you're driving or distracted. Don't try to multitask. They'll know if you're not paying attention, and that could be the worst thing. So set aside a time when you're going to be focused, alone in a quiet space, and you're able to listen and pray with them. Okay, basic phone etiquette type stuff. Okay, let me talk a little bit about boundaries. The folks you're going to deal with, I'm going to call care receivers. They're, by definition, if they're calling us, they're in a kind of a bad spot right now, shall we say. And when somebody comes in to provide relief to your stress, sometimes, not all the time, I wouldn't even say often, they kind of start to look to you as like their savior. Oh, thank God you're here, and I don't know what I'd do without you, and you have to kind of watch for that. And you have to make sure they understand all I'm doing is what God's asking me to do here. And he's your savior, not me. Always point back to God. I'm just a vehicle through this. And if you start to see somebody get a little too attached, you need to start drawing pretty clear boundaries in terms of, if I want to call you every single day and maybe a couple times a day and we'll talk a lot and this is going to be great. And you have to kind of set boundaries, and I'm going to, let you decide that. But me personally, I think a good rule of thumb is let's talk about once a week, maybe more than that, but certainly no more than twice a week. Anything more than that, and it's getting, they're probably going to be depending on you a little too much. So you want it to be a good, healthy pace. And what I would say is, probably don't start out with boundaries like, okay, before we do anything, you can't call me at this point, anything like that. I would just kind of wait to see how things go, and if it becomes an issue, then deal with it. If they're calling you at 10:30 at night or something like that, or or in the middle of the night, or they're calling you in panics or whatever, then we're getting into some areas where we need to set some boundaries. Okay, so be aware of that and know that that's part of your responsibility is to set proper boundaries. They need to know what they are, okay? But then you ultimately decide what they are. But again, rule of thumb, not more than once or twice a week at the most, okay? And we can also, as these come up, I'm always here to process with you guys. I'm going to be here as your coach, and I've done this for a long time. So as you have questions, come to me and we'll work through them. What if you encounter something really serious, like way beyond just a little anxiety? And I'm talking about depression, or somebody who might be suicidal. And frankly, in these times, it's not uncommon as people get more isolated and they're not seeking out healthy interaction. That can really happen. This is an environment where that can happen. So, quick answer: we don't deal with. We can come alongside just about anybody in any situation in terms of their emotional, spiritual health. The only two areas we really don't are like significant depression and people that are suicidal, and the two often go hand in hand. And so I'm going to talk in a minute about the signs for both, but the short answer is this: if any of these signs come up, you're not going to deal with any of them. You don't even begin to try to walk through them. We're not equipped. So that's when you contact me, you let me know what's going on, and I'll take it from there. You won't even have to worry about it from that point on. I'll get them professional help and they'll be fine. But that's the short answer. So I'm going to walk you through a quick list of what to look for on both of these issues. So in terms of being suicidal, is somebody posting about death and or suicide? Are they talking in detail how they would commit suicide? Have they got a plan? Do they feel hopeless? That's a really big part of it. I just feel hopeless. Or not having a purpose. An increased use of alcohol or drugs. Sleeping patterns are off. They're sleeping too much or they're sleeping too little. Displaying extreme mood swings. Sudden calmness. And that's a really interesting one. Because that typically means that they've got the plan put together and they know they do plan on killing themselves, because they're calm because their pain is about to end. All right. So sudden calmness, taking on dangerous behaviors. They just don't care about their life anymore. And also making preparations, like giving their stuff away as a big sign of somebody who's planning on suicide. And here's something that I learned I was a little surprised by. It's okay to ask someone, are you feeling suicidal? And don't worry, it won't make them. The big concern is, oh wow, maybe they weren't, but now that I said it, they are. That doesn't work that way. Okay, so it's perfectly okay to say, are you feeling suicidal to someone? All right. So that's the list for suicide. Signs to look for. Signs of depression. A lot of similar things. So lack of motivation, a feeling of helplessness, a loss of interest in daily activities, appetite or weight changes, sleep changes, anger or irritability, loss of energy, self-loathing, again, reckless behavior, concentration problems, or unexpected aches and pains also. So as I said at the beginning, these two things go hand in hand. So a lot of the traits are the same for depression and for suicide. So keep an eye out for those. And if you see them, again, you don't deal with it, I do. So you just send it over to me, and I'll take care of them from that point on. Okay. That's basically the training. It's very simple. In this training, I didn't want to go over every possible scenario of what you might encounter, because this would be an 8-hour training. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Dive in head first on this. Again, my main thing is, when it comes to training like this for folks like you, is that you got the right heart and, you got a sound mind. If you have those two things, you can go do ministry. I promise you. Again, with a few details thrown in there. So the way I'm going to approach this is, as you come up, if you encounter stuff that you don't know how to answer it, or you're a little uncomfortable, it's not a problem. All you do is let the person know, hey, can I get back to you on that? Or, if it's some kind of behavior you're trying to address, I'm 100% available and I could walk you through it. So just come to me, and whatever the scenario is, taken on a case-by-case basis, that we will work together, and I'll do my best to counsel you on what I think, how you should approach it, and that'll be fine. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know exactly how you're going to react in every scenario. I'm here to help you. I'm your backup. I'm your coach. I'm your support. And so my guess is you probably won't encounter a lot of stuff you don't know how to handle. But if you do, I'm here. So I want you to be confident in that. So, hey, thank you for going through this training. Thank you for making yourself available to those who are hurting. You're doing an extraordinarily important job. And I can't wait to see how God works in this and all the great God stories that are going to come from it. So God bless you all, and we'll talk to you soon.